isn't to live forever. The goal is to create something that will.
Welcome to Perspective, a podcast for wedding creators, where we sit down, often with a special guest, and talk about our many years of experience in the wedding industry so you can learn from us and grow your wedding business. But who the hell are we? Well, I'm Simon, and this is Greg. Together, we're Cinemate Films, two Scottish-based wedding filmmakers who love nothing more than drinking coffee and talking shop with others in the wedding industry. This episode is, of course, sponsored by With Jack, but I'll get onto that a little bit later in the show.
Before you ask the question, what are you wearing? Well, can you get that
What
off?
am I wearing? This is class. I did Tough Mudder, and this is my winning, memorabilia.
Winning? You won it.
I won it.
Are you an Olympic gold medalist? You've got a sweat.
Yes.
Did you just finish an event?
I am.
Yeah.
That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my last ever episode of Perspective because I'm leaving to be a professional mudder. Is that the term? I don't know what these are called.
Is it?
Anyway, I don't know. I just thought it would be fun to wear. Anyway, sorry, Greg.
Well done on keep completing it again.
Because it's my second time doing it.
That's amazing.
Anyway, Greg, who are we talking to?
We are talking to Jan Palmer. Hello, Jan. How are you?
I am competitive.
Oh, nice medal you've got.
Exactly. He got a huge medal.
What is that?
I've just put on a Polaroid camera. And
that's way
now
better.
we can meet on equal terms. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who the hell am I? I'm a lady. I'm a lady that lives in Utah, America. For your listeners, I don't know how wide your base is. I'm a single mama of 3 teenagers, which is horrible. I don't recommend it. Little shitheads. No, they're beautiful, creative, wonderful 14, 16, and 18-year-olds. I've been in the photo industry for 16 years. So I've been around the block. And I work mostly with a couple of old beat up film cameras. And I also teach quite a bit. I get to teach. I think my friend Ryan Muirhead is the reason I'm here. He maybe mentioned me. We teach a workshop together.
Yep.
And
Yes, yep.
I've gotten to travel all over the country and the world teaching and speaking and making photos and really trying to see people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When you said the reason you're here, do you mean like on the podcast or do you mean like
in existence
as an actual creative?
In existence, he birthed me. Ryan Muirhead.
He birthed you. Because if people were to look up your name, your names are kind of intertwined online. You do a lot of work together. So, tell us about your relationship.
Our relationship starts with a feud, with a fight. No, Ryan and I met, I was about maybe 3 years into my photo journey, and he and I met through a mutual friend at the only workshop I've ever attended as a student. I won a seat. It was a film workshop called Film Is Not Dead. And
cool.
Ryan and I both lived in Utah at the time, and he asked me, can I tell the story? Do we have space for a little story?
Absolutely.
Of course.
Yeah.
At the time, I belonged to a religion that was, your listeners know about Utah. It's full of people who are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And it's a really conservative religion. And Ryan was out here. It was even more conservative at the time, right? So he's out here messing things up, shooting a bunch of naked people. And I was trying to distinguish myself in the market by creating one of the first here, natural light studios that was beautiful. And at the time, it's so dated and embarrassing now, right? But it was all white floors and floor to ceiling windows. And I was so proud of it. And he was like, hey, can I use your studio to make some photos? And I was like, Ryan, yes, but I know you make those naked photos. And my studio is a family photography studio. So if you are going to make naked photos in my studio, you can't use it. And he's like, no problem. I won't. We're just gonna take some pictures and blah, blah, blah. He made the naked photos and he posted them online. So it's not like he was trying to be discreet. Ryan, not smooth. And I said, no, sir. We had an agreement, and then we got in a fight, and then we like both trashed each other online, and we've been best friends ever since.
Very cool.
Since,
very cool.
I shoot quite a few nudes myself, so this story, like I said, it happened a long time ago. But
yeah. Well, so you met at that workshop. Like, what got you to the workshop? Had you been in photography long at this point, or? Yeah,
I'd been in about 3 years, and I was still in that phase of being a photographer where, I don't know if you guys relate to this, but you're a fan. You have those photo idols that you just worship, right? That you're like, oh my God, if I could only be like them. Do you relate? Like,
okay. Yep,
100%.
So I had my idols, and I was trying to make my photos look like them. I was trying so hard all of the time. I was using all of the Lightroom adjustments, trying to imitate. And I was like, why can't my photos look like that? And I realized I was slow. All of my idols were film photographers, right? And I was working with digital.
Okay.
So I was shooting digital images, trying to make it look like film. And film has a really specific luminosity that is just, it's that analog feeling. It feels like it renders soul so much better than digital can, in my opinion. So this workshop, I was at an event in the US that's for wedding photographers called WPPI. And I went to go hear one of my film idols speak. And I was dirt poor. I just had my third kid, like was still nursing, and there was no way I was going to be able to afford a workshop ever. Like, and the price tag on his workshop, I think, was around $2,000, you know? And so I was sitting in his class listening to him speak, and he announced that he was going to give away a free seat, and he was going to pick it based on the best designed business card. And I was like trying to like mental voodoo it. I was like, it will be me. It will be me, please. And it was. So I went to see to that workshop, and it taught me, like, it was specifically how to shoot film. And it really was my introduction into the film photography world.
Yeah. You know, whenever anyone talks about film, I always remember the conversation we had with Cy Moore, and he was talking about turning our mindset from a digital mindset to an analog mindset. Do you think there was anything, like, obviously the medium of film offers something in its character, but like, did it change anything in your brain that made you look at the world a different way? Or
that's a really good question. For me, I'm pretty out there. I can be weird on here, right? Like,
hell yeah.
100%.
We're two weirdos.
Great.
You're in good company.
Excellent. For me, one of the frustrations, I mean, photography is an interesting thing. We're in the practice of seeing. We're in the practice of sight, right? And what's fascinating about the practice of sight is that none of us can really see the way another person does. None of us can really know what it is like to look through another's perspective, right? And to kind of render the world from the very unique perspective that we have. And as a photographer, I was always frustrated because I'm not actually passionate about photography per se. I am passionate about light and shadow. I am passionate about presence with people. I am passionate about observation and sight. And it was so frustrating that I would see particular beauty, things that felt poetic and subtle, and I would pick up a digital camera, and it felt like it choked it. It felt like it just it did not have the receptivity necessary to hold the poetry that I felt like my perspective held. And when I was lucky enough to pick up a film camera, like I remember the first time I picked up a Contax, I'm not passionate about gear, but the main body that I shoot with, I looked through it and it was like, it's like what people say when you look into the eyes of your true love. You're like, I recognize you. You're my soulmate. When I looked through it, and it's not, now I know it's because it shows you depth of field while you're shooting, right? You're looking through a Zeiss lens and it's creamy and it's showing you all of the depth. And I was like, this is how I see. And then additionally with film, so find that frustration, it was like, I would get pictures back and I was like, for the first time, it's actually working. It's showing back to me the way I saw it with my eyes, the way I felt it in my body, the way my heart responded to it. I felt like film delivered that back to me. And it, I can get sort of overcharged by nervousness, creative energy, life force, or on my most negative days, crippling anxiety, And another thing that film does, which I'm sure you've heard people say, is it teaches you a different way of shooting. You're not just shooting, scrapping, knowing that you're covering the perimeter, When you shoot with film, you hear people say it slows you down. But it also teaches you how to meet the moment as it happens, because it's much more expensive to shoot with film. You're not spraying and praying, but you're having to anticipate. You're having to come towards the beautiful thing that you are hoping to receive and therefore reflect back to your clients. And you have to sort of respect it as it respects you. And I feel that it's a much more communal, it's a much more, it demands presence. It demands real attention. Yeah. Were you always drawn to light and shadows and this kind of a way of like seeing the world, like even back in, I think you described it as your old life, or was this like a discovery through just the journey of being creative? I grew up in Idaho. A lot of people don't know where that is. I grew up in a small town called Boise, Idaho. It's much bigger now. But I remember, it's an interesting question. Have you always loved light? Because, we all make up our stories going backwards to make us sound cooler and more interesting than we are. Right? Like, it's like, yes, I've always been intrigued by light and shadow. I always, I want to sound so deep. But I grew up in Boise, and I learned to drive on this like red stick shift pickup truck that had no power steering, that was like way stronger than I was. And it was, and there's this one road that I would drive down. And at the time it wasn't very busy. There weren't a lot of houses on it. And it was like the last long road that would lead to my home. And I remember loving driving down that road I didn't know what it was then, right? But photographers, we call it the golden hour. And what I loved about it seemed to be what most people hate about it, which is like, it was like blinding me. It's like that time of day when you're driving and you can't really see. You're just like, and you're like flip down your like protector and you put your sunglasses on. But for me, like I said, like I experience a lot of anxiety or just general discomfort in this thing called being human and being alive. And in those moments when I would drive down that street into the light, being almost blind, everything would melt away. And it would just feel like, this is right. This is what, I didn't have this language for it. Like I said, I'm always trying to sound deep, right? But I didn't have the language for it then. But now when I think of it, it's like, oh man, that's when that light was sort of reanimating my own light. It was breaking past my own barrier. It was meeting, and it gave me that sense of everything is still shit, but actually it's okay. So, yeah. And I find,
thank God you didn't crash. Oh my God,
how do you know I didn't? It was a pretty straight road. It was a pretty straight. And like, that's the thing. And I feel that this way often shooting, right? Like, it's like you're shooting, you're working with the light, things are shit at shoots, at weddings. You guys are primarily wedding photographers. Things are falling apart. There's so much beauty, but there's so much chaos, right? And so you're looking to find that thread, the golden thread that never leaves, that pierces and says, and it's beautiful. And this is where it all connects.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Yeah.
You know, whenever I'm trying to find those elements of beauty, like those little threads that you talk about, I'm always looking at where the light intersects with the shadow. Because I had a similar experience, but instead of, I wasn't driving or anything, it was being a child, and I was at my grand's house. She had a nice big house, but it was very dusty. And I remember every morning we'd go there early, and you know, when you have guests at a house, you know, you fluff all the pillows and everything, and you wouldn't be able to tell there's all this dust around until that morning light comes through those big windows, and all you see are these little like twinkly dust particles. And every time I'm at a wedding, I'm always drawn to the dust in the room in a very similar way to the feeling that you got when you're driving the car. Like, it makes me feel quite calm.
Yeah.
And I'm always trying to find those little bits throughout the day of the dust in the room. And I swear, if I can get a nice, like, and because we are filmmakers, it's harder to do with stills, but the way it moves, if I can get a nice, like, if I can just blur that background and try and focus on the little particles that get hit by the sun, oh man, I'll spend at least 20 minutes trying to get that shot. Just because it brings me so much joy.
And partly what I love about it is you'll spend 20 minutes trying to get it, but it's one of those things that's so ineffably beautiful that you're not going to catch it quite. You're just never going to.
Yeah, it almost can't do it justice.
You cannot, even with the video, you know, because I've tried, I have a shot like that. I have a shot of like a little girl reaching her hand, and it's in the dust motes that are flying through the beams. And each dust mote, you're like, you know, the book Horton Hears a Who?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar, but
there's like
Dr. Seuss.
There's like a flower and he's protecting it, but the flower itself is a whole entire world and community, right? Like, and it exists within his own world and community. But I always think of those little dust motes as like, I mean, that's us. We're fucking dust floating in space. We're like on a rock, and there's something probably bigger than us looking down and being like, what are you? You know, like I feel like it's the tiny little microcosm that is reflective of the macrocosm into infinite dimensions. And also, I tried to do this with a sprinkler in my neighborhood last night, just with my iPhone, because it was sunset, and it was like, have you seen when the sprinklers, they illuminate the different...
Oh, yeah. What the, like, cascading rainbows? Is that?
Yeah. And I tried to film it.
So good.
And with my shitty iPhone that turns everything into high definition the second it's documented, it turned what was like these beautiful droplets that were catching the light, cascading into like all these little knives, just like shooting sharp little, so maybe you guys have some video tips for me, because I couldn't get it.
No tips for you, I'm afraid.
That was like a no soup for you Seinfeld moment. That was like a no tips for you.
You told me to be mean to you. I'm working up to roast. Secrets. I'm working up to roasting. You told me to be mean to you off camera. I'm gonna try and be mean. No treats for you, young lady.
It's all just potluck if it actually works.
By the way, the people driving to their wedding listening to this are going like, oh yeah, dust.
Or they're pulling their visor down.
What the fuck are these guys talking about?
I told you, I asked. I was like, can I get weird?
I love getting weird.
Yeah. You describe yourself as being in the love business. Tell us a bit more about what that actually means to you, and like how that maybe influences your approach to things.
What do you think it means?
Obviously means you're doing more than just capturing photographs and creating art. You're sort of documenting someone's love story more so.
Yeah, you didn't catch my flirty bantering tone. I was trying to like make an allusion and give respect to the many like wonderful sex workers of the world because I'm in the love business.
She's roasting you now. She's turned the table, Greg.
Like this is why Ryan and I are such good friends, because we will just like spar with each other. But no, people don't usually ask me that question, so I'm really glad you asked. I am going to paint with a really broad stroke and say it's all love. Basically, my fundamental belief of why we freaking exist in these meat suits is to learn how to love and to receive love. And I think that at the core of the best art is an attunement to that, an understanding of that, an understanding that the act of creation itself is an expression of love. It's an expression of devotion of some kind. And that we are better artists. Like the process of becoming an artist is an interesting thing because we have to know ourselves, we have to understand ourselves, or we have to be exploring ourselves, or we have to be in this kind of navel gazing, self-absorbed, narcissistic me, right? Like it's like, this is what I shoot with, this is what I think about, blah, 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 right? And so that often makes art quite an egoic process, quite a selfish process.
Yep.
But what's paradoxical about that is you can walk through that door of ego. You can walk through that self-obsession, desire to self-express, self-understand. And if you walk through that door and you do it with genuine curiosity, and you do it with radical honesty, and you do it with integrity, you end up going through your layers of self, and you find out that there is not a part of you that is separate or actually better or worse or different than everything that is outside of self. And your ability to other people, to judge people, if you're doing it with radical honesty, integrity, curiosity, that ability to other and say, you're different than me, you're worse than me, and even you're better than me, it diminishes. And to me, this is love, is understanding that although we may come and we must respect all of the different forms and the endless varieties of expressions that we all embody, right? And we can't just say like, no, there's no difference, because we live in a world and a class system and all of these things that affect our lived experience. But if I go deep enough into me, I get to you. That's something that Mark Nepo said. That's not a me original, I have to say. But that is love. And that's the business I'm in. That's the center. Like, I am not just a photographer, I am interested in that. Yeah.
If I'm looking at your work, I really do feel that there is that sort of understanding, that kind of empathetic, almost that kind of eye that you approach your images with. What was the journey to get there, though, that built this kind of philosophy? Did that come to you just by taking images, or?
Yeah.
Because I know a few people who just, they show up, they point the camera, and they take photographs, and there's nothing, like, that's where it ends in some people. Where's the next stepping stone for them who just do that? Where's the discovery part? Am I making sense? I'm not making sense.
I think you're making sense. I'm going to give you a long ass-winded answer. Okay, we're gonna go through.
Okay.
We're gonna go through a couple ups and downs.
Okay.
You are making sense because I'm sure you want to give your listeners something that they can do, right, to get there, right? Like you're.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're taking pictures. One question. I'll jump to the thing that I think is helpful to them. Mm-hmm. We live in an overly visually aggressive culture, and we work in a visually aggressive medium, right? It's all about what does it look like, right? And so much of what is called good photography, guess what? It ain't that good, but the people in it are really fucking attractive, and they're wearing really stylish things, and they're in a really cool space. And it's everything that is surface level visual. And I've got no beef. I like aesthetic, right? Like I like things like that, but we're only just skimming the surface of what is possible with what we can do. So instead of asking, you have to ask. You have to be a selfish asshole and be like, what do I want? What looks good to me? Those questions are great. But also ask yourself as an artist, what do you want to feel? What do you want to feel when you're making an image? And what do you want to make your audience feel in the first 3 seconds that they see your photo? And if you start asking that question, you begin to flip the process around and say, like, you start to refine what I would call inner sight, the inner eye. Mm-hmm. And it's a much more abstract way of shooting. It's something that you have to play with, that you have to explore, right? Let me tell you a story to try to ground it. When you asked, like, how did you come to this? And basically by being kind of a selfish asshole and exploding my life and leaving my marriage and leaving my religion and saying, oh my God, I have to be the same on the outside as I am on the inside if I want to make the kind of art that has the resonance and gravitas that I need it to have. And I hadn't left my marriage yet, but I was flying. I think it was one of my first like travel sessions where I was like, oh my God, someone's paid to fly me out of Utah and to where they are. And I was going to Oregon, and I was in the airport, and I was reading a book, and I was really stressed out. This was right before I blew everything up and left my marriage and left my life as I knew it. And I hear this music playing, and it's the most beautiful, otherworldly piano music. And I look up, and the person playing the piano is a pilot, but they look really bizarre. I don't know if you've seen the movie Big with Tom Hanks. It's an old one. But you know when he's a man and he shrinks back into the boy and he's in a suit and the suit gets really baggy and you're like, oh my God, he's every age at once. He's a man and he's a boy and it's beautiful. And it's like also creepy because he's got this date with a woman and they're in love and it's a little boy. So that's really disturbing. But anyway, but he shrinks. And he's in this baggy suit. And that's what the pilot felt like. It's like he's this pilot man, but he looked young at the same time. And he's playing this beautiful music. And I realized, like, I'm sobbing. I'm snotting. Something inside of me is having that response that I feel like only true beauty can make us have, which is it brought me back to myself, my truth, beyond words, right? This wasn't an intellectual experience. This wasn't something I was analyzing. Suddenly I was just there. And I looked around, and people all around me were having the same experience. They were overwhelmed. And he finishes the song, and we all everyone stands up and just claps because it was truly rare. And in that moment, for me, I was like, that is what I want to do. I want to create what this tiny pilot just created for me. And I can do it with writing. I could do it with photography. I was working as a photographer. Yeah, I mean, we can do this with many mediums. That's the beauty of it, right? But I chose photography. That's what I was diving into. And I knew that if I wanted to do that for people, for me, I couldn't just talk a talk. I had to walk a walk. So all the truth and beauty I was feeling, I was like, holy shit, I've got work to do. I have to make my life align with the things it is that I believe in, the things that I want to create. And so I started making huge, huge changes. And that is a journey that just like never stopped. I'm always on that, trying to keep everything aligned, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So when you're saying, yeah,
it does.
Absolutely. Yeah. When you're saying you're thinking about how you want to make your audience feel, are you thinking just the couple because they are your target audience and it's their photos for them? Or are you thinking wider as in anyone who views the image or anyone who's going to encounter it?
Yeah, it's interesting because as photographers or videographers, we are unique in our artistic process. We're almost like musicians, but not quite, which is like we're working with a subject in real time. We're making our art in real time. So there's that subject relationship, and then there's the wider audience of the people who will see the work later, right? Or the clients that will see the work later. So it's a weird, interesting thing. I maybe lost the thread of your question. It's like, am I doing it? Am I thinking about how I want to make the subject feel or the audience feel? There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually quite like that analogy that you just put out there, that bands and music, because it's kind of for us, like we are in the recording studio and we are capturing the sounds and then we produce the album. You know, we're capturing these events, we produce images, we're capturing the events, film. Whereas that experience that you talked about was all that it was a live experience, right? So you were there experiencing it in that time. And I wonder, do we as filmmakers, videographers, photographers, do we have a live aspect?
I think it is. It's how you make the client and all the people at the wedding feel on the day. Like that's our live show.
Yes,
exactly. Well, and you point to, I mean, that's the linchpin, actually. That's it right there, because it's not about that it's our show and we're the center of attention, but there is a live quality that is absolutely necessary and reflects in the art. And I would call that presence, right? So everything about how I want to make people feel, it begins with me. How present, if I want to make people feel that sort of transcendent love, remembering of who they are and what they believe in, right? If I want to make them feel that way, and I am instead thinking about 100 other things while I'm at the shoot and I'm distracted, or I'm just obsessed with the product, or I'm wondering if this film is going to be better than, I'm not a filmmaker, but I'm speaking as if I'm you. If this film is going to be better than the last film, you know, or I've got all of these other concerns, like, oh, then I am not imbuing the work that I'm making with that feeling. So if I want to make my subjects feel that way, I've got to be present first. I've got to be grounded. I've got to be, for me, in a flow of gratitude, in a flow of awe, in a flow of wonder, in a flow of trust. So like a certain amount of trust for myself, assertiveness, able to work with my equipment, able to work with my subjects and make them feel at ease. And if I start with that center, then it trickles out from there. Then my subjects, you guys, I mean, this is a lot of what I teach about. We don't realize that we are so often the emotional barometer for our subjects and those around us. So if we can hold that space, and you don't have to be noisy about it, you can be utterly silent and almost invisible. But humans, we're fucking animals. We instinctively read each other and feel each other.
Yeah.
So when we're in that space, it transfers to the people. And a compliment that I get, which is really lovely, is that people feel a sense of safety to kind of reveal their true self. Right? So, and I think it comes from holding that kind of presence in myself. And then your subjects who maybe came in like grumpy assholes, or they maybe came in because, you know, they're stressed out.
Yeah.
Being alive is crazy. Or maybe they're like obsessed with the result, or they're self-conscious, you know, but they start to relax too, and they unlayer, and they kind of, it's so cheesy. I just posted a meme that was like, some of y'all afraid to be corny, but I was born on the cob. I was definitely born on the cob. They unlayer like a flower. They bloom. They reveal. And then, so there's that feeling and we don't realize that there's an emotional transference into what we are creating. So if that feeling is present as you are making a photo, then when people view the photo, they, in their animal selves, even from a third party perspective, they're picking up on some of that. They don't know why. They can't explain. Something about this photo is more beautiful. It feels more true. It feels more authentic. How did they do that? What is that? And it's so much because of this process that we're starting with. And it doesn't all have to be lovey and gooey and da-da-da-da-da. Some people want their photos to feel fucking crazy, you know, or like to feel full of energy and alive. And something that I like to do at a lot of photo shoots is I'm always seeking my edge. Life isn't just beautiful. When I say love is everything, like love is the ugly parts, love is the risk, love is the hurt, love is the break, right? So I'm always like also not just feeling that presence of like, oh, we're all stroking each other's hair. There's also risk. I'm flicking things, I'm flicking people, and I'm saying, hey, jump off of that. Do it really quick. Yeah. You know, I'm playing with it, and it's feeling like a risk to me. And I don't know if I'm going to catch it or if I'm going to drop my camera. And they're kind of like, what? And then that energy is in the photo. And then your audience feels that risk and that aliveness. You know, people are always like, how do you make your photos like feel real or true? And it's like, well, you got to live it real and true. You don't just stage it, you know? Yeah.
I feel like you can very clearly see that in especially your family photos with kids.
Yeah.
I feel like kids are so much more receptive to that sort of energy that it just, there's a good few images that
I know.
Like, because Greg mentioned the show and tell earlier. I always try and keep it to 3. It's so hard sometimes, but there's so many of your images. I'm like, oh my God, I want to talk about that, but I can't. I'm like, I got to get rid of 6 images here. I'm like, oh my God. But like, if any of our listeners out there has not seen any of these images, go and check them out on our website.
Go do a deep dive.
And talking about deep dive, I want to talk about your Substack.
Yeah.
Which is called Yanland. Now, I had no idea what the hell a Substack is. But what a fucking insight to you, your creative process. Like, would you call it a newsletter? Would you there's podcasts and all sorts of stuff, and
I know
it's tied into there's obviously a little bit of a paywall as well if you want to do a deep dive into Yan. Tell us about your Substack, because I was fascinated going through it, and I never like to listen to other people's podcasts just in case they influence, I mean like guests, in case they influence it when I'm researching, because I never want to feel like I'm copying content that's already out there.
Yeah.
But tell us about your Substack, because it's fascinating.
I don't even know how to describe it, but it's not like a website. It's kind of like a website. As photographers, we've got websites, right? It holds our work. It's where our clients are going. You know, for years, I've been trying to find a solution. I really believe that what I give in my education and what I give in that kind of presence with subjects and with clients. So I wish it was, I'm not against making money. I've made the big money, blah, 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 blah. But it should be free. And so finding the solution of how do I continue to make an income, but I make things accessible And I get to take all of these different pies that I've got my thumb in and bring them together in one place. And Substack was that solution for me. So you mentioned a paywall. There's like, you can pay $6.99 a month, and then you can participate in free classes, free discussions, past interviews that I've done, things that I've been writing over the years. And then if you're a free person, you're like, is it a newsletter? Because it kind of is, right? If you're a free person, you're getting this newsletter every week. And it's me really saying whatever the hell I want. But no, it's my own explorations into, I'm interested in the journey of the artist voice, of the artist really finding their truest, most real voice, and where that kind of intersects with the mystical process. So I write a lot about creative process and the mystical kind of intertwining. And then also, I'm writing a book. So I'm writing a memoir.
Oh.
And it is a memoir of basically those wild years after I exploded my life and what it was like to step out of being a domestic mom and being a quote unquote glamorous traveling photographer. Like now it's all the rage, but was one of the OGs, and the sort of beauty, but also like a certain toxicity in that, and a certain like wild kind of lifestyle and all the things I learned about it. So I'm using Substack to publish that book, that memoir. And it's also, I mean, it's my life story and where I come from and from chaos and blah, 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 blah. But I'm publishing it Dickens style, which is like a chapter at a time. So in installments that people can follow along with.
Cool.
Yeah.
But there's so much information. You give a lot of yourself. And I was actually just checking out the website because I don't know if Greg's properly had a look. But there was a splash page that came up. How many subscribers do you have? Did I see 30,000?
30,000?
That can't be right.
No.
30,000? No, okay.
No.
I can't get it up again. It's not splashing again.
I just launched it in May or April. So we're definitely not to the 30,000 mark yet. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, 3,000. 3,000. Sorry. My mind did blow up there when I saw that number.
I should have just gone with it. I should have been like, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have 30,000 subscribers and you could be one of them. Well, like, I guess, like if you strip down all the information, which just sounds like noise because we're all overwhelmed with information. People have told me for years, I wish I could carry you around in my pocket. And I was like, well, okay, so I made something so that you can. Like, this is me trying to fit in your pocket and give you every avenue of access that I can think of to give you. Yeah.
And how do you foster like a sense of community within that Yanland? Like on these live classes, is there a back and forth and do people interact there? So
it's still really new. So we're still in the process. Have you guys built communities before?
No,
not well.
We seem to have a lot of branches of things going to different social media platforms. We had one for this. We've got a website for this podcast and then an Instagram. But the Instagram kind of gets left behind because we're trying to do TikTok. And there's just so many pies to put your fingers in.
Yeah.
Oh, that doesn't sound nice. You know what I mean? There's so much thing, and we've both got families, and I feel it's very overwhelming.
It's exhausting.
If I'm honest. It is very exhausting. So we're not very good at it, but the podcast is listen to it at your own content, and that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless you're going to give me tips of wisdom, Well, give me tips.
Well, I mean, the best things happen organically, right? Like I never, as a photographer, as an educator, I never set out to be like, I am going to build my Instagram following to 70,000 followers, and I am going to have workshops, and I am going to be asked to be a public speaker. Like I didn't announce that, right? Like,
Yeah.
But when I started very, very early, I had a viral moment very early in my career where something that I had written went viral. And then people wanted to learn from me and they wanted to like receive education, and the community just sort of built up around me, right? And also I needed to make money, like it's hard to make an income. I'm a single mom. I've got 3 kids, and let's be honest, I don't know if people, like, to a gross degree, the education world and photography can be lucrative, and I've always tried to respect it, but also like that was a very real factor. But then also people would come to my stuff and they'd be like, I'll join your cult. And I was like, oh no, okay, I love it. I love that passion, and I love, but also
just dial it back a little bit.
But also low key, my ex-religion people do consider kind of a cult sometimes, and so there's this sense of like community building sort of organically around me also stoking that out of joy and economic need, but then also kind of then running away from it because it gets a little too intense, and then being like, oh shit, that's not what I meant to do. We got to break this up. I don't want to have this locus of power, And so Yanland, am I trying to build a community? No, it's actually me doing yes and no. It's me doing the thing of, I'm here. This is where I'm going to be. Come, don't come. Do I really want people to join that community? Hell yes, because it's, again, at the lower fee. And if I get enough subscribers, I don't have to keep leaving my teenagers while I go work all over the world, which is really hard. It's really hard on them.
Yeah.
So it's been sort of my solution to that lifestyle of being constantly on the road, which has amazing perks and benefits, but you trade in a sort of normal home life for that. Yeah. I don't know. I just started rambling.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, 30,000. That's the number we're trying to get to. So Yan doesn't need to leave her kids. 30,000 subscribers.
Thank you.
Let's talk about like creative block for you, because I know that's something you've talked about before, like navigating your creative block and breakthroughs. So like, do you have any set strategies that you use to break through a creative block, or is it just a case of having to slowly chip away and find something that sparks that creativity?
I think I have used maybe every strategy. I'm sure you guys relate. Like, how long have you been doing this creative work?
Been doing weddings for 13 or 14 years.
13?
Yeah, you've been around, right? So it's like, you reach those various phases of burnout or creative block. And, but there's also your own kind of philosophies change through the years, right? So my philosophy used to be, if you put a barrier in front of me, I don't know, you guys got a bug? What do you see there? You're pointing to something.
What's Simon doing? I have no idea what he's doing.
Did you see dust? Have you found dust and now you're distracted?
I see dust. Sorry. I'm trying to clean up the desk area so it doesn't look so bad on camera.
That's okay.
Sorry, yeah. Although I was still listening.
I can't remember what I was saying. Do you remember? Oh, it used to be like we have different philosophies for things through the years. And so it used to be, if it's like you put a block in front of me, I'm going to fucking smash it. I'm going to break it. You put a creative block. Okay. I am going to place myself in my own aliveness. I'm going to rejuvenate. I'm going to eat a peach. I'm going to write a poem. I'm going to dip myself in the river every day so that I can welcome back life force and flow. And it was like very much like, I will dominate my block. And now it's kind of more like, oh, I have a creative block. Oh, that's a signal to me. That's telling me to slow down. That's actually here to help me, not here for me to bust through and force myself to overcome. But actually, if I listen, if I honor it, if I chill out for a second, take breaks, step away, and let that kind of creative flow return back to me, that's going to be often more useful. It's more in harmony with my own flow. One thing, though, I do like to tell people, and maybe it will help your listeners if they're blocked, is I say, have a creative affair. Cheat on your medium. I really used to like the work of Esther Perel, and she talked about why most people have affairs in their marriages. And it's not typically because they don't love their partner. It's not typically because like things are so awful. Although those are all factors, right? But usually people lose their own sense of vitality. People lose touch with who they are. And then it is that process of going out, falling in love, meeting someone else that revitalizes them, that makes them like, and sometimes they're really confused and they think, oh, it's the marriage that ruined me and died. Really, they died, right? Like they went too far in. And I know I like to use shock value, right? Like that's a little bit of a scandalous analogy, but with our creative process, it is often the same, right? So we might be doing this thing for such a long time. And it's like, we get into this kind of entitled, bratty, like, oh my God, my clients are such assholes. And oh my God, it's just not inspiring anymore. And like, they expect this of me and like, and it's like we trash everything about what we do and we trash the relationship. And while all of those things may be true and we're exhausted, most of the time we're more responsible than we realize. Most of the time we've let it get to that point by not speaking our truth or by not like operating things in the way that really honors our artistic self and needs. Or we're just taken on too much. We've said yes to too much because we've had to, or we wanted the accolades. And so we burn out there and we just kind of lose our energy and we forget how to love the thing we fell in love with in the first place. And so sometimes you go out, instead of picking up a camera, pick up a paintbrush, right? I have all these paintings behind me. Pick up a book. Put yourself in go see a really, really fucking inspiring piece of film, right? It has nothing to do with all of these wrappings and packagings of the thing you think you hate anymore, but it has everything to do with that flow of life that is at the center of the best art. And immerse yourself in it. Let yourself feel it again in this way that has no pressure, no expectations. Then you can borrow some of that energy and you can bring it back to your primary creative relationship and use that to revitalize. Yeah.
I want to talk about something that I've been struggling with recently. And I don't know, so many people struggle with this. And it's sort of the same kind of thing. Imposter syndrome.
Oh God.
I've been feeling very down on my creativeness and myself and what I create. Do you have any methods that are kind of what we were talking about, like how to overcome those sorts of feelings? Because I feel like it's less about like a block. Well, it kind of is a block in itself. Like I almost don't want to do the creativeness anymore because I feel like it's going to be shit.
Yeah.
You know, like I gave up on so when I was starting to be creative, I went to music and I quickly discovered I just wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
So I stopped. And then I have these little things where I get really passionate about it, and then I realize I'm not that good enough. So do you have anything to say with regards to not feeling good enough, and where does that idea even come from?
I have so much to say about it. First of all, we all have it. Imposter syndrome is so hard. I mean, it's every single one of us struggles with that, like, what the fuck? Why did I think I could do this? Why did I think I had something to offer that was special, that was different, you know? So much compassion for that. And now I'm going to get intense. I'm going to get intense in a couple ways. One, a lot of times we get stuck in the muck of imposter syndrome because we are too far into the self-absorption. We are too far into making it about us. And for me, I warned you, this is going to get intense. This is going to get out there, right? It's going to get Star Warsy. It's going to get...
I fucking love Star Wars.
The force. There are two forces out there. There is the force of creation, and there's a force of anti-life. And the force of anti-life at its most extreme, we see it in the genocides occurring around the world. We see it in oppression. We see it in misogyny and toxic patriarchy. We see this force of anti-life that does not, we see it in toxic late stage capitalism. It does not seek to create, it seeks to consume and to own. It's dark. And then there is the force of creation. The force of creation adds life, expression, beauty, truth, connection. One of my favorite quotes about art is that art reconnects what has been unnecessarily separated. And you see it around the world. There is so much unnecessary separation and division. We get to be on the fucking team that is the force of creation. We chose that. It's incredible. It is a privilege. We are so lucky. And it's not about our thing being the little thing that gets the likes or gets the attention or gets the rewards. It is adding to the collective force of yes life, not no life.
Yeah.
It's bigger than us. It's so much bigger. And we can refine our intention as artists to be as big as we want. And if your intention is small, if it is just about, which trust me, my ego is huge. I'm here all the time, right? I fall into this pit probably daily when it's like, it's just about me and how well I present and how well people like me. And am I the real thing? Am I not the real thing? And then it's like, listen, yes, it is about you, but you have to hold both. You have to stay in your own expression and honor it as utterly valid as you want every other expression to be treated. And you have to know that it's, oh my God, you're a fucking speck of dust. Right? And you got this shot. You got this shot to make it, to make something. Again, I would detach from the outcome, right? But I would detach from the thing that you end up making, and I would say, you have a shot to give it your all. And if you can reshift your focus to that, I think you're going to feel much more inspired than, but was it good enough? Right?
Yeah. Okay.
Hope that helps. The other thing, this is much more chill. I watched recently a documentary about Salvador Dali, the painter.
Oh yeah.
And it was really interesting. I'm always interested in the plight of artists, and it was really interesting to see someone become a global sensation before the dawn of social media, right? And like to see the footage of how did this person rise to what they were? And I was like, oh my God, is he a great talent? Beautiful, like changed our world. Yeah. And he was a delusional dick. Like truly just like was like, I am gonna hit the scene with utter extreme confidence. I'm going to just say whatever as if it is the truth. And I am just going to be my own force of nature and tell people to believe it. So,
yeah.
Damn.
So, I mean, I actually think like for a lot of the artists that we look back at, that is what was required. And we're delusional sort of either way. So how big are you willing to step into it? How big are you willing to let your moxie get? That's a different approach. A little less intense.
Oh, the question is, how much is Greg gonna do? That's the question. Yeah, you know, it's hard to get advice and then because I feel like I never feel like I'm in it when I'm having conversations with people, when I'm in the co-working space around creative people. I'll never feel that. It's only when I'm like, I've got the laptop on my lap and I'm like, oh, TikTok video here and scheduling posts. I'm like, oh, hey, look at the likes. Oh, like, yeah. It's very strange to be in it and then have the advice and then kind of not know what to say because I'm still to process it. But thank you. And if you're, and I just want to say, if people are listening to this and feeling the same, send me a message.
Yes,
I don't want to feel like a lonely person out here.
And, well, you know,
yeah, everyone feels it at times.
I don't know what your media consumption is, and I know I can get preachy, and I tried to give you the warning of my intensity, right? But it's like, understanding our own susceptibility to the digital wolves that are trying to tear us apart, you know, like that these we are being used by the systems that we are quote unquote using to promote our business, and those systems are designed to divide our attention. And I do believe that our ability to pay attention is central to our ability to create. And the more we I'm not painting it black and white, but the more that we lose ourselves in the digital divide, the more we are decreasing our potent energy and ability, right, to have that attention. And this is by design, you guys. This is by design so that we are being targeted to lose our belief in our ability to create. We are being placed as cogs in a machine that pits us against each other, depletes our energy, and depletes our ability to actually come together and believe in ourselves and believe in one another again. It's all on purpose. I know I sound like a mad conspiracy theorist, but you know what? I might be. So I'm just saying that if you're feeling this, don't feel any shame for feeling it, because you're a target. We're all targets of like trying to get us like down on ourselves. And what I have to do is I've set really strong boundaries with my consumption. And I really am trying to monitor like how much am I actually creating versus how much I am consuming. And I frickin' spend as much time in nature and as close to real life as I can so that I am less susceptible to that digital fracturing of my flow.
Yes, I probably spend too much time in the digital.
I wonder, so you obviously work with film, and I'm assuming there's very minimal editing process there. Like,
yeah.
So you maybe don't spend as much time on a computer and on a screen as editing a wedding film or a video. You basically have to be on a screen. So I wonder if that
for sure
makes it slightly easier to disconnect from that digital consumption.
Yeah.
Because when you're sitting there editing a film, and all of a sudden you just flick over and Instagram's there or something's there to distract you.
Oh my God, the editing the film, I have some experience. It's so long. I don't know how you do it. It's very intense. But the reason I'm so passionate about this is I have been utterly addicted to digital media, to social media, like consumed to the point where it's like I felt like I missed years of my children's childhood. Because instead of seeing what was in front of me, I was seeing what was below me or on a screen. You know what I mean? So That's why I'm so, I just don't want it to sound like I think I am above it. No, I have been the worst offender. Not offender, but the worst participant. You know, we're all like, and in a certain way, you can't win.
Or it doesn't feel like you can win anyway.
So you have to figure out how to be in relationship with. And we're all the blind leading the blind there.
So the question is, how does Yan stay inspired and how does she keep moving forward?
I'm like, am I sweating? What's that? I'm tired. I stay inspired by, I have my creative practices and rituals. Today's a funny day. It's like I didn't, I forgot about the interview. I like woke up and like saw your email and you were like, I'll see you in an hour. And I was like, oh shit, is there any way I can cancel this? And then I was like, no, Yan, don't cancel. Go up.
Thank you for that.
Well, yeah, it's the worst. You've got your scheduling system. Yeah. But usually in the morning, and this is, I'm going to speak to something, but this is years of building these practices, right? Like I used to just be a passionate missile of chaos, just bouncing around, you know, like a petri dish, or like a pinball machine, just bouncing around. And that chaos almost like caused a nervous breakdown. And still, I always feel like I'm a little bit on the verge. And so I've been building practices over the years. So usually when I wake up in the morning, I spend an hour meditating and journaling. And I try to read something that is, I usually read Rumi every morning. Just one of my favorite poets. I know I sound like an asshole. I just read my favorite poets in the morning. But I do. I get up and I make that time. And I also try to make sure that I'm connecting with nature. I'm really lucky. I'm really lucky where I live. Utah, I feel like I don't fit in culturally, but I am very close to mountains. And I have this beautiful dog. He's sleeping over there and we try to get in the mountains. And if I'm not shooting at golden hour, then during not just golden hour, because I know that's like lauded and there's all kinds of light to work with. And, but I'm in relationship with light every day. I'm nurturing that relationship. I'm spending time, like I said, watching it, trying to capture it, trying to film the sprinklers in my neighborhood as they are like playing with the setting sun, so that I'm refining always that relationship. There's a mountain here. There's a hike I do here it's short. It's about 2.22 miles, actually, exactly. And every Sunday I walk up that mountain and I walk down it. And I do that because I feel like the creative process, it's a fire. And I want to stand in that fire and as close to that fire as I possibly can. But also, shit, that fire burns and it can burn me up, you know, and I can not eat and I can, I turn into like Gollum or Smeagol from Lord of the Rings, where you just become like a my precious creature, and you shrivel, you know? You guys know what I'm talking about because you're just so consumed. And so I go to this mountain and I fast actually every Sunday, and I make myself walk up and down to try to ground me and connect me to everything that is bigger than myself, to get me out of that, like, whoa, my precious, and all of my crazy anxieties and freakouts. So those are some of them. That's not even all of them, but those are some of the things I do to stay inspired.
Hey, I'm Ashley from With Jack. I'm one of the sponsors of the Perspective podcast. With Jack helps to keep photographers in business by supporting them financially and legally if they have problems with a client or they make a mistake in their work. We've all had that fear of our CF card or our hard drive failing and losing important photos. You can find out more at withjack.co.uk. Head over there and find out how we can help you be a confident creative.
Yeah. I'm liking this practical talk that we're doing. So let's keep it on track with the more practical side of things. In fact, let's go really boring.
Okay.
Let's just start really boring. What equipment are you actually taking for a shoot, for a wedding? What's in your gear bag?
I have the most simple gear out of anyone I know. I've had the same cameras my entire career. Once I moved to film. Mm-hmm. I have a Contax 645 with a 80 millimeter Zeiss lens, and I have a Canon 1V. Actually, it used to be a slightly lesser model, but I have the Canon 1V, and on that camera, I keep a 24 millimeter lens with a 1.4 aperture, a Canon lens. So like it's actually a digital lens, but it works on a 35 millimeter camera body. Now, sometimes that's what I shoot everything with. I have shot one of the first weddings I shot on film. All I had was the Contax. I didn't even have like inserts to change it in and out, which is like how you change film really quickly. Yeah. It was just like, I was just making people wait for me as I loaded my film. That's part of the risk taking. I know it's if I was shooting like 5 weddings a month or 3 weddings a weekend, there's no way I would do that, right? Like that would be way too risky, and it would be irresponsible to my clients, right? But when it's like, when I have cultivated a relationship with my clients where they are specifically hiring me, not necessarily to be a wedding photographer, but they're saying to me, I'm hiring you for the art that you make. I want you to make however you make it.
I love when clients say that.
And that's something I worked, that like took years of putting myself out there in this weird, bearing everything kind of way for people to actually do that, And sometimes I'll throw in like a Holga or like a toy cheap camera, or like I have a Yashica T4 that I'll have with me sometimes to do some like point and shooting type things. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have anything unique in your bag, like lights or a weird piece of glass or anything like that? Or are you just trying to?
My creativity works responsively, and so for me, I have to create limits for myself. So I try to keep what I bring. I used to bring a lot of shit, right? Like. But then I would get all frenzied and distracted and like getting all of my stuff and like get lost in it. And it would end up being more of a distraction than a help.
Yeah.
And so instead, like I keep my gear set up really simple. So like the restriction makes me be more creative. And then wherever I'm at, I would always be looking for things I could pick up and grab. And they're always around. We have so much around us all the time. So if I was at a shoot right now, I'd pick up this glass, this water glass that I have. Nice. It's got pink flowers and green flowers. It's got all these weird little dots, and I would just take my camera and I would just start looking like through it and turn it around a little bit. And I'm always constantly just playing with challenging my perspective using the creative things around me all the time. Sometimes it's like my clothing. Sometimes I would like stretch out fabric. Oh, I just realized my dress is on backwards. So I would like stretch out fabric and shoot through it, or I'm grabbing things off of my subjects themselves, and it's all sort of part of the dance.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. By the way, I don't think we actually mentioned this on the podcast, but when you got that message from us, what time was it?
What time? What? Huh? Like,
the email.
When you got our email and you were like, "Oh, should I cancel?" What time was that?
6
Because I don't
a.m.
think our listeners. 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay, so if anyone's like thinking, why she got her dress on backwards? It's 6 a.m. and this woman's not had a coffee. So goodness sake.
Yeah.
So when you're like in the lead up to, like, say, a wedding, do you have any sort of structure to prepare for that day and to make sure and get the sort of best authentic results? Like, do you have ways of talking to your clients to get to know them, or do you have forms, or how do you sort of prepare to capture the best moments?
Well, spoiler alert, like I used to shoot a fair amount of weddings. Now I hardly shoot any, right? Like I don't want to be disingenuous to your listeners and be like, oh yeah, I'm a total wedding photographer. Da, da, da. So it's like, before when I was shooting more weddings, I had questionnaires, right? Like, so questionnaires for people to fill through. But now when I shoot weddings, they are people who have been following me for years. And we basically do one phone call where I sit down, and usually they, if they're coming to me in the first place, they're usually coming to me from that place that I described, which is like, not that we've shopped around and done all the wedding photographers. God, I just got to come clean. I'm spoiled. My clients are photographers. The only other people who ask me to like photograph their weddings right now are usually family members of photographers or photographers who have been following me for years. And they say, there's nothing else that looks like what you make, and we just want what you're doing. You can just do that. So I would love to be more helpful for your listenership and say, do this with your clients, do this with your clients. But I do think I can be helpful in saying, the more radically real you are in what you are putting out into the world, stop trying to be like the other photographers. Stop trying to follow somebody else's formula. The more you embrace everything it is about you that is idiosyncratic, strange, intentional, and you tell other people, you communicate, and passionate. Say, this is how I want to shoot. This is how I see you. This is how I want to connect with you on the day. The more you do that, and you guys, I always say, my best talent is looking like an idiot, is just putting that out there. Yeah. And having people be like, what the fuck? Who does she think she is? And just like, oh, must be nice for you. I just like endure all of the judgments, all of the eye rolls. But the braver you are to let yourself be seen, then you will be able to find the clients that really want to be seen too. And they want to be seen in the way that you see. And you have to do that by opening up. Not you don't have to open up your life and share all your dirt and everything, but you have to open up your heart about what you love, who you are. It doesn't have to be all your personal confessional details. Yeah. I hope that helps.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And it's funny because you mentioned you're not a wedding photographer really anymore. But I have, like, we used to talk to other people on the podcast when it was less focused, like celebrants and other things, bands. And I really liked hearing their perspective because I really think that we can learn so much from expanding our perspective and seeing the world through other viewpoints.
Yeah.
And I think, especially in the world of photography, there is so much similarity between how we can approach things and seeing how other people do things that we can pull from, whether it's business advice or just like we talked about the experience that you give with a client, like pulling these sorts of things and bring them into our work. I think, it's so valuable to have other people's perspective on that.
I totally agree.
What?
Greg,
What?
why have you just changed all the notes? I want to ask these questions. Sorry, Jan, ignore it. He's just changing the notes. He's probably thinking we're going over time as quickly.
No.
Okay, we are getting a little bit over, but I do want to talk about interacting with clients. Do you have any like prompts or poses? Or I know a few other photographers would put like poses down. Like they would say, "Oh, I don't pose couples. It's all natural," and they put that kind of methodology down. Do you have a view on poses? Do you have prompts? Do you like how do you work with your clients to get them to move and be authentic? Because that is when I look at your images, that's what I see is that authenticity.
Yeah.
So how do you do it? My
process, it's really fluid. So sometimes I can be in that group where I'm like, no, I'm not posing, and that'll work for a while. But also, what's unique about what I do and the challenge in what I do is as a traveling photographer in most of my photo sessions, like I'm in town for a short amount of time and I've got all of my time booked up with shoots and I'm not coming back and we only have this one shot and it's a couple hours and there's not the space often to wait around for the like all of the natural organic interaction, right? There's a time limit sometimes. Yeah. So it's like, although I do try to create like that space it ends up happening naturally. However, I've devised a whole method that like people always say to me, I am shocked by how much you pose. Looking at your photos, I just did not expect it. But they also say like, I love how much, and these are usually subjects themselves as I'm working with them. They're like, I love how much you're directing me because it makes me feel so, like I feel so confident. Like I know what to do.
Yeah, there's a little sorry, we lost you for a little bit. You paused.
Oh yeah, okay. Where should I jump back in?
Just the last couple of lines, I would say. It was only like maybe 10 seconds.
Oh, people just say they're really, really surprised by how much I pose, but it also makes them really feel confident because they know what to do. But here's the thing. The way that I pose is trying to lead people into being their unposed self because most people are awkward. Most people are not knowing how to just, it's like if I say to you, hey, just relax in front of my camera, just like pretend I'm not here. That's the first thing you say to someone that makes them be like, huh? Like what? And they like stiffen up and just get all awkward. And you're like, oh, I really wish I'd caught you right before you did that. So I have a method. I call it the art of fall apart posing. And I'm just going to put a plug in for it. You can buy the guide. It's like a couple hundred pages. It has infinite poses. They're not poses. It's how to get really unposed photos. But it does, it rides on a couple of core foundational things that we don't realize about body language, right? So it's like, I start with what is called the resting pose. If you want a natural photo, it's not going to be of someone like, I realize people are listening, they can't see me, but you guys can see me. Like, it's not natural to just stand straight, you know, like it's not, you're not going to get something that feels relaxed, connective, right? So you start by placing everybody in your photo in a resting pose. So if they're standing, you want to make sure their weight is displaced. You want to have them maybe put an arm up on the person next to them, right? If you're working with multiple people, everyone is in a slightly different resting pose because you're also working with dynamics, visual dynamics, right? So everyone's doing something slightly different. So there's a story forming. And I'm placing people, this is all happening really fast, right? So it's like everyone's in a resting pose, everyone's doing something slightly different. Then you've got to introduce that unexpected factor to make it all fall apart. Because you're directing people, you're starting with the body first to get them to feel comfortable and relax in themselves. But what you've done is you fucked it up because you've put them into positions that is not what they would normally do. Right? So even though you've gotten them into a more relaxed place, it's still stiff because it's not authentic to who they are. So then you got to introduce something to shake all of that up. And then they're going to take their resting pose. They're actually going to fall into something like, I'll often throw things at people. I'll make really loud noises. I'll like, you know, we all have our tricks. Like, what do you see? What's that over there? Oh shit. And it's that moment that it all falls apart, right? That now that's the real shot. So I've like set myself up to get the authentic thing. And as a family photographer, which is primarily what I do, you mentioned this earlier, kids so often are those agents of chaos, right? So they'll like, you're setting stuff up and they're doing you a service actually by messing it all up. So you just have to like get your kind of foundation into place and then let them just be the rascals that they are and say yes to it instead of trying to fix it. Let it fall apart.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Like, so if you're working with a couple and they're like, oh, I don't feel comfortable, like I'm not good at being on camera, and then you're picking that up from them, is that when you fall back on, well, I'm going to use a bit more posing here?
Yeah.
And that's how you deal with that sort of, oh, I'm not good in front of camera. Is that, am I right in saying that?
Absolutely. I also use something that I call empathetic emulation. So particularly for people who are not good on camera, you're not going to just immediately be like, well, I'm going to make you good on camera. We're going to get weird, you know? So it's like, do you guys feel like you're good on camera?
Yo, yeah, totally.
I mean, there's a reason we're photographers, right? A lot of us are like, I like to be on this side of it, right? So that's a point of empathy where you can connect with them. So immediately you can be like, yeah, it's the worst. This is awful. Yeah. Like we all kind of hate this. And so you make that kind of connective point, right? And then what I do with people like that, yes, I'll like force them out of their comfort zone, not just kids, adults, right? But what I do is I start modeling the emotion that I would like to bring out from them. So if you notice just now, I started slowing down my voice. I got quieter. If I wanted to get a couple into an intimate space, I would start talking to them softer. And I would grab the person who was a little bit more comfortable and I would say, can I show you? Can I just put my head on your shoulder for a second? And I would sort of demo, and then I would bring the shy, awkward guy, because like I've gotten quiet, I've broken down the like kind of veneer. I'm kind of weird, and that kind of surprises people and shakes them out of their comfort zone. So he's a little curious, and I'm like, come here, just do this. All you gotta just do this. And then place him back in the scene. I step back. I beam at them like, yeah, there's that intimate beauty. We all take a breath, click.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm feeling calm. I'm like,
well, it works. And then if you want to shake things up, you start getting fast. You're like, you know, and you just, we can shift so much of the energy just by embodying it ourselves and playing. You want to get playful, you got to start playing, right? Yeah. And that's a lot of how I steer it.
Do you work with many, when you did weddings, did you work with many videographers or filmmakers?
I wouldn't say a ton. Yeah.
Okay. Did you ever find you were working with someone maybe that brought a different kind of energy, and so you're, I don't want to say battling, because it's very much a cooperative type vibe that you need to go for, but did you ever feel like they were bringing a different energy to when you're shooting with the couple to what you were trying to do?
Oh, for sure.
Ever?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How'd you balance that as a photographer?
So I I used to photograph as a help a lot of weddings with my ex-partner, Whitney Chamberlain. He started Field Trip. I don't know if you guys are familiar. He used to shoot with his, she's now deceased wife under the name Our Labor of Love. They were these huge wedding photographers, and then they got divorced and we started dating, and they were shooting weddings separately. So I go to a lot of the weddings, and he worked at the time with a lot of way higher profile clients than I've worked with. And so there were sometimes there were other photographers, sometimes there were other videographers, and also fucking, I love that man, but like he can match my intensity with his own intensity, bird of a different feather. Right. And so we would, like there's that energy. And to be honest, I just think that concept of the battle itself is, no one's like, I'm not saying that you guys are saying that or that people are thinking that, but when you allow yourself to get agitated, when you allow yourself to get overwhelmed by what someone else is bringing, you are giving your power away and you're just getting drained. It's such a waste of time. Right. So a lot of times, like if you get into the power struggle of trying to take the reins back or trying to steer it, it's just you're losing so much of your creative energy and time on the day. So for me, my best strategy in those moments is it's like, I'm going to like step back. Like I'm going to view this thing as a creative limit that has been presented. And that's going to push my perspective to be different than it's ever been on this day. That's actually a benefit of me, right? So especially if someone has a bigger energy, oh my God, my favorite thing is like, let them take it. Let them direct it and do all of the work. And I'm going to be snipering on the sides, right? And like laying down over here and getting these like strange or epic creative perspectives. And I'm not having to waste any of my energy doing the direction. And I love that because that can be exhausting, So that is typically my MO rather than entering the struggle.
Yeah. Yes. I don't know, because obviously we're very much the same, although that has been the one occasion, I always talk about this, about when I was working with Dylan Kitchener and there was a tick on my hand and he was Dylan was trying to create he did the same technique as you. He was talking very softly and he set this couple on the wall and getting to think, and I directly behind him there's a tick on my hand and I'm very arachnophobic. I'm like, tick! And I start screaming, and I'm like, fucking...
Totally killed the vibe.
Totally killed the vibe. I had to apologize to him. I've grown up since then. Did I read somewhere, Yan, that you describe choosing which images to show as your superpower? Did I read that somewhere?
Yeah.
I feel like I did. So how, for those people who struggle to decide, because it seems to be quite a common theme with many photographers, that they picking which images and which ones do you show and is a struggle. So first of all, why do you describe it as your superpower? And do you have any tips for those photographers who struggle with this particular aspect of photography?
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's difficult to articulate. I think I'll tell you where my imposter syndrome lives, right? One of my imposter syndrome places is like, oh, I'm not a good photographer. I'm a good curator. I know how to select the images that make me look like the shit. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, it can be this sort of insecurity that I have, or like I'm good at storytelling. I'm good at making constellations of emotion that creates an evocative response in people, right? And so knowing how to do that with my own images, it felt like I was cheating early on, where it's like, they can't see all of the ones that are just awful and boring and, it's, but in giving people advice on how to do it, there's a couple different things. Let's see, I'll just rattle off a few. One is gut instinct, right? One is this instinct of not asking yourself a question of, is this image good? Oh my God, do not get sucked into, you have to have some balance with it, but don't get sucked into, is my client going to think they look good in this image? Sorry, I got a text message. Or do I look like a good photographer in this? The question I'm always asking is this image alive? Is there living energy?
Is this image
alive?
Alive. Alive. Okay.
Is there living?
Alive.
Yeah, alive. Is it alive?
Sorry.
Like, how real is this? Whatever the emotion is, how true is it? How much kind of it's all, you guys you get to work with moving video, but stills, it's like I'm always asking how much kinetic energy, how much movement is in here, how much flow. Because looking for those photos that have a living quality, they almost have their own kind of heartbeat. And again, like I said, it's hard to articulate. It's an instinctive thing, but I can tell you how you know you're not there. If you're looking for the one where everybody looks good or where they think they're going to look good, you're not there. A lot of times the photos I pick to choose are the ones clients are like, oh my God, thank you for sharing that double chin image with the world. You know what I mean? Or like, that's my sex face, you know, like, or the O face, like, it's like, that's not the face I want people to see, because we're so lost on what we think is beautiful that we've lost like our kind of human authenticity. So something that would shock people to know about me is how many times I send galleries to my clients where they're like, oh my God, I don't like, the way I look in that photo is not the way I thought of myself. Except for when I share those photos online and other people see those photos, they're like, oh, whoa, that person is fierce. That person is real. That person is beautiful. That person is, and then people, the clients, they look back at their photos maybe 5 years later and they're like, thank you. Thank you. Now listen, I don't do just that though, right? Like I also, those are the photos I show online, but I will, because I'm trying to be in service also of my clients. Like I am especially I'll pick the person who seems like this photo shoot means the most to them. And I will make sure to give a variety of images where they might feel a little bit more traditionally beautiful or attractive, and then I'll kind of balance that out. Let's see. I think people don't consider dynamics very often, right? So when you're sharing a wedding or you're sharing a video, people aren't considering how each of the photos that you're choosing are speaking to each other and playing off of each other, as well as they're speaking outwards to the viewership, right? So part of the way I maintain aliveness in what I select is in that relationship between how the photos play off of each other. So what I'm trying to represent as I'm curating a gallery or curating like my website page is I want aliveness in every photo, but if I'm showing the same kind of aliveness, the same emotion, if every single one is like a stoic direct stare at the camera, you know, and it's intense and you can tell that it's real, it's still one note. It's still the same thing again and again and again. So if I'm a photographer listening to this, I would ask myself, what are five alive emotions I want to represent in my story? Don't ask how they make logical sense. Don't ask how they make linear sense. Ask how they make felt emotional sense. What are five? They might be, I want wabi-sabi. So I want things that are imperfect. I want intense intimacy. That's one thing that I want. I want bursts of motion, energy. That's one thing. That's a third thing that I want. I'm just going to stop at 3. And then as you're curating a gallery, you're picking an equal number of photos to represent each, so that then they come together and now they're all dancing off of each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I love that suggestion. I might take that and run with it.
Right, it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
And I just want to encourage people to stop making sense, right? Especially when they pick photos, because I think that's we're stuck. When people really, no one is viewing art and having a transcendent change their life moment, because you're like, that photo was taken at the exact time of day that represents this exact thing. You know, like, it's like, we don't come at it from a logical, linear perspective. We're coming at it from feeling. We're coming at it from instinct. So moving to that place in curation is important.
Nice.
Speaking of images, will we get a couple up?
Show and tell.
Oh my God, I've been talking at you guys for almost 2 hours. I am not sorry because you invited me.
I've been looking at your faces. I've been looking at your faces for 2 hours. Oh God.
You're not bad.
Sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm having too much fun here.
Good.
So this is exciting because I can't remember what images I have actually selected of yours.
This is exciting. It's so fun to see what ones you would pick. I can barely see it. It's kind of pixelated for me, but I can recognize it.
Can you recognize what one
I
it is
do.
though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. As long as you can recognize it and be able to give us some backstory, great. So, like I said, there were so many of your images that I wanted to pick, but I've just kept 3. I believe, yeah.
I think so, yeah.
I've been a good boy. And I can't remember why I picked these 3 over the whole set, but I will talk through my thought process as we look at them. So my first one with this is, I think when I look at a lot of your gallery, you freaking love harsh light. Whereas a lot of photographers, they are scared of it. They are scared of light, strangely enough. And so I really just wanted to get your thoughts and any words of wisdom with dealing with harsh light and even just like, I mean, look at, this is not a traditional, this is not a pose. Like this is a feeling that you are going for here, and things are messy and there's shapes and colors that are, I mean, yeah, even the way the clothes on are fitting in with the green in the background. I mean, there's so many elements that work so nicely. Tell us your thoughts on this image. And yeah.
It's beautiful because these are some repeat clients for me, and I had photographed them before. And the little boy that you see in the image, the last time I photographed that little boy, they identified as a little girl. So this was actually a transition. So it was like meeting them in a new and more true and more real place. So that was present in this shoot. And that was an interesting to get to witness that transition. But also I'm interested in where my belief system exists is in non-duality, but where creation exists in this world, we exist in the space of duality, the space of light and dark, black and white, right? And you asked about the intensity of the light that I'm drawn to. I am interested, duality creates a spectrum, right? There's one polarity, light, and then there's the other polarity, dark. And I, in an image, in any work of art, I want to touch on as much of that spectrum in duality as I possibly can. If I want to touch as much of that spectrum, then I've got to represent both points of the duality, right? So choosing the harsh light that you see here, it's that representation. And it is kind of harsh. And then we've also got the shadows coming in to represent that other polarity. Now we've got our stage. We've got our stage for what the photo is. What I want I want as many of what I call creative tensions to exist in the photo as possible. Now, when I say creative tension, I mean things that go together that are usually opposites. They're not meant to exist together. And yet when we bring them together, they create this tension, this polarity, this duality that kind of, it's represented in visual, tangible ways, but the way we experience it, if we had no knowledge of art or art theory or anything like that, the way we experience it, it pulls at our guts. When we bring things together that are opposite and opposed, but they somehow belong and are right together. Right? So for instance, this is an intimate, we already have the harsh light and the shadow, but this is also a really intimate moment between mother and son. They're cuddling on the bed, but wait, they're about to fall off the bed, right? So like they're intimate, but they're also, like they could slip off at any moment, right? So there's that creative tension. Another one, they're intimate and cuddling with each other, yet I was able to grab their attention and say, Mom, give me that gaze, give me the direct gaze, you know? So it's like they're having that moment, but the gaze itself transcends that intimacy, comes right to the camera and the viewer. That's another creative tension, right? The amount of places that their bodies are in shadow versus where their bodies are in light, that's another creative attention. The little boy playing with mom's hair, that could be, that's soft. That's something that we do with people we love. But if you've ever had a little kid touch your hair, you know that shit goes to pulling really fast. You know what I mean? You're like, thank you, that feels so nice. Ow, now you're hurting me. And so there's a little bit of that where it's like, it's a soft gesture, but there's a yank. That's hard. There's a creative tension there.
Yeah.
What
does this image or this gallery mean for this family in terms of that transitional element to their lives?
That's a great question. I think you would have to ask them. You know, I'm not sure what they would say. I can say, I have a lot of respect for the mother that you see in this photo. She's a beautiful artist. They live in a home in Portland, you know, not that these things make anyone better or worse, but with really unique, inspiring architecture. This isn't a hotel room. This is not their home. I photographed them at home before. And then she's also married to a painter who is just prolific and an incredible gifted artist. So they're very beautiful people, full of depth and expression themselves. And I wouldn't be able to articulate what that transition meant to them other than knowing they wanted to honor it and embrace it. But I will say that they were people of such depth that it was very easy for me to meet them in my own space of depth and flow. It was, you know, it's like they get as much credit for this photo as I do. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. Let's move on. I have a funny feeling the way you described their home. Is this the same family?
No, different.
No. Okay. No, I don't want to spotlight a family, but still. So the reason I picked this one is because I don't think there's. I think when you're working with people, it's very hard to remove yourself from the idea of taking image of these people and they're right in front of you, and so you're just working with them. And I don't think a lot of people are even brave enough to remove themselves and pick a point of view that is so outside of the world of taking an image of this family. You know, so I feel, and I don't know, obviously, if this is a part of a house or their house or where you are you on a balcony, I'm not sure, but it feels that you've removed yourself so much to capture this moment, and you've got obviously two people who know you're taking an image, and I mean they all know you're taking an image obviously, but there's a little bit of carnage here as to what this little person's doing, and the mum's trying to sort them, and you've got a lot of the background, which I love, and this abstract, you've got like a blurry part up here, which is doing something, and that's questionable. And then you've got like all the lovely character of an image, like all the imperfections that I love that people just want to remove with AI all the time, like this blankets and trees and mess, and it feels real. And that's what I love about this image.
Thank you.
Can you talk us through anything here, or even anything that I've said that's wrong?
No, I'm so pleased that you chose this image. I meant to say this when we were talking about curation. I always tell people, like the image that you think other people would be critical of, but there's something or that it is very imperfect, but for some reason you love it. For some reason, it's just like the image that you are stoked on. That is the image you choose to show. Choose the one you can't explain why, but it just is,
Yeah.
And so, I mean, let me try to answer your question. You said a lot, so let me try to unpack, but I'm
sorry, I tend to do that.
Me too. I am always, I mentioned this earlier about risk taking, but I'm always seeking my edge. Right. So I'm always trying to do things that other people are like, you shouldn't do that. like that is, that's probably not, like, this is shot with my 24 millimeter lens, like from a distance, which oftentimes is going to like create distortion that is not going to be flattering, or it's not considered a landscape lens. You know what I'm saying? Like, and this is people who, I don't know if people listen more, if they watch the video, but like, they're not going to be able to see. So I'm not going to try to visually describe it, but, in the moment, in communicating with the family, so they're doing these things, like I said, usually at family shoots, I'm directing them. Usually things are going wrong. They're not going right per se. Usually they're just like, I've asked mom to do something. She might be doing it with one kid. That kid's resisting. This kid's playing over here. The third kid is supposed to be standing close, but they've run off into a room, and you just got to figure out how to juggle all that. Right. So I can always go back to like, what do I have control over? Okay, mom, you guys are doing this thing. Some of it looks good. Shooting it inside the room was too dark. I didn't want to stay with it. There wasn't the polarity, the duality, right? The dark point, the light point, like everything was too dark while I was inside the space. I didn't even know if I ran outside of the room, if I would get something good or different. That was the other edge. I was like, I'm just going to walk out and I'm going to see if it looks better. I didn't say that part out loud, but what I communicated to them was hey, mom, I want you to stay in the window. You're not going to be able to hear me. I'm going to go outside. You're lifting him. Keep just like interacting. Just try to keep yourself, stay there. And I ran out of the room and I just walked out onto the balcony, tried to find my perspective as I took this shot, not even sure if I really loved it or if it would come out, but playing with it. Like I mentioned earlier that I pick up things around me all the time, right? So she had, I don't know if it was a glass, there's something blurry a little bit at the top. I can't remember. I picked up something, and that's me like trying to find a way to play with the perspective that made it even more interesting and gave it more depth of some kind. I don't remember what that was.
Was that a pair of glasses? Kind of looks like glasses.
Is it?
I don't know. It's so blurry you can't tell, but you can see.
Yeah, it probably is.
But on first glance, I was like, oh, it must be shooting through a window as well, and there's something on it. But then I'm like, no, it's not through a window. There's definitely no glass there other than where the blur's coming from.
Yeah. But me being very unsure the whole time, like if any of that was going to come together. But I'm making my way there by feel. It's intuition, it's instinct, it's using all of the elements of both beauty and chaos to synthesize into something together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Next image, Greg.
I do that. We'll go outside and see if I can shoot through a window so often. And there's times where there's thick double glazing glass, and it just, you can't shoot through it. And I'm like, damn it, I'm just standing at the window looking like an idiot now. Hope they don't remember that.
It's usually Greg at a wedding, just looking like an idiot. Do you ever get scared when you're doing those kind of shots, or you're in those kind of moments that you're not getting anything that's usable? Does that ever cross your mind?
How do I even answer? I try to be scared. One, I'm always scared naturally all of the time. But two, I recognize that the presence of fear means that I am as close to the fire as I can be. And that's a good thing. I look for that. I try to put myself in places of uncertainty and discomfort because I know that is going to give me the breakthrough. However, the way I decide to be in those spaces really matters. So am I thinking this might not work out all the time? I'm trying to. I'm looking for that. I'm looking for the fuck, I don't know, but I can almost reach it. I can almost touch it, So yes, but the way I dwell in that space is with, I see the fear. I feel the anxiety. I've sought it out. And I'm activating this kind of radical trust. I'm activating this like, yes, like, let's try it. And, oh, it's exciting and it's fun. So it's like kind of like the calm in the storm at the same time.
Okay. Damn. I like that. I like your positive spin on anxiety.
Yeah.
It makes me question
everything,
my own sense of fear.
Everything has its use, right? It's like we try to push everything away, but we could completely flip the switch and be like, how is this here for me now? How can I work with this? That's radically changed my work and my life for sure.
Damn, nice. Last image. Now, I picked this for a number of reasons. One, because, and actually, this, what I'm about to say, was also in the first image. I just didn't mention it. But you make a cameo in this image. Right here, your huge, big shadow. Which I think a lot of people would tend to avoid or shoot around or even just digitally take out. You've got some front of face, you've got your dad looking off to another side, you've got backs of heads. It's very natural and unstaged and just
feels like a real moment.
Yeah. It feels like a real moment. And I just imagine how many people would just not even bother with this image at all. They would probably just be like, oh, I'm in it, I should have probably backlit or something, or I don't know. But the contrast with the greens are lovely, and it feels.
I know it's.
So you can instantly. It feels like a real moment, and you could feel yourself being there. Like I can almost feel the heat from the sun on me right now. If that makes sense.
That's a great compliment. Thank you. Yeah, because this was one of those images that it's almost a throwaway, right? Because there's nothing. What you're saying, the moment is so real and so subtle and so nuanced that it's like, is this even great? And yet, every time I see it, it's epic at the same time. And there's that duality. There's that creative tension again. I'm like, oh, but it's like I'm living in the moment with them, which is exactly what was happening. Like, have you guys ever been at shoots and you hit the sweet spot? You hit the sweet spot of you're calm, they're calm, you're in kind of wonder. The light is just like honey around you. And you're just in this kind of rapture and this awe of the beauty. It's almost overwhelming. You're just, it feels like that love bath, like that love soup. And you're just like, I can't even believe I get to live this moment, be in this moment, And it almost, to me, it's funny because those moments as a photographer, I almost don't even want to have my camera up. You know, I'm like, this is ruining it. I just, and I've learned that the more I actually let myself dwell in that feeling of genuine awe and appreciation for the beauty of, this is that green grassy hill, the intense blue sky, these people, their connection to each other. If I let myself dwell in it before bringing the immediate commodification, which is to say my camera capturing it, if I'm a little more patient, right, and I let myself feel it, it's almost as if the moment itself, the magic itself, it trusts me more. And it says, okay, I'm going to give you a little gift. Here it is. And it feels like catching it instead of making it.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that. Very nice. Well, I mean, like I said, you have so many images that I don't want to talk about. These will do. And if anyone wants to check out more of your work, definitely help Yan's. I mean, Substack, if you want to know more about her, about her work on her website and Instagram. Oh, so good. So
Thank
good.
you.
I can get lost in all your content for freaking ages.
That's the idea. Yeah. Come drink the Kool-Aid.
Come.
No, you too.
Through the paywall. Come to my workshops.
$6.99 a month. That's it. Buy my fall apart posing guide. That's just, it comes with the territory. You two have been my morning coffee this morning. Thank you so much for getting me to talk about these things that I love so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for opening up with us. It's been great. Yeah. Let's do a little bit of plugging because that is more or less the end of the podcast. You have workshops and courses and you are online. Tell everyone everything so that if they wanted to just dive into the world of Yan Palmer, direct them. What should they do? Where should they go? What should they listen to? Tell them all.
This is where I freeze. I feel like we've already plugged so much. Okay. Yan Palmer. First of all, subscribe to my Substack, motherfuckers. Come on. Like if you haven't
30,000.
If you haven't already, you can just swim in the content there. Plus there is new stuff, regular stuff. Plus it's a space for misfits. It's a space for people who are like sitting in a room feeling all their big feelings and aliveness like me and thinking, if I said any of this out loud, people would think I was crazy. You know, it's like, come and join me there and let's be in the bigness of it all. Ryan and I have a workshop. I've really have pulled back in creating and traveling and teaching because my kids really need me at home right now. It's really important. And and I'm creating just locally. I'm writing more and painting more. But Ryan and I are doing one workshop this year. It's in Joshua Tree, which is a very powerful vortex, strange, mysterious place. It's at my friend Rochelle's art house in the desert. I don't know if all of your listeners are European. They're probably not going to like hop the pond, you know, but come join us there if you can. That's in October. I teach a class once a year called Teeth Kiss, which is just to help people match their work to their insights. It's a class on like establishing your unique voice. That happens in January. But really it's right now it's that Substack. Like come go on a weird journey with me. Join me there.
Definitely.
Yanland.substack.com. Just have to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're very open on your Substack. I know you've got podcast episode when you're talking to Whitney and stuff about your relationship and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it goes deep. So if you want more Yan, you go deep on her Substack. I'm telling you.
I was sitting doing some research for this episode, and a partner walked by and went, "What are you looking at? Naked at home?" So There's also that people can check out.
Oh my God.
Like, what? What are you? What is that?
I forgot. You know what? I'm so glad you said that, because that's something I need to plug. During the pandemic, I partnered with a marketing expert who worked in the corporate world for like 20 years, which is like the yin to my yang, very different than me, right? But I'm really good at selling shit. And we, because I've had to, and we made a course for artists, because artists hate to sell. I hate to sell. I'm really good at it. I hate it. Most of us do. It's called Naked Marketing. It's about how to turn marketing into talking about the things that you naturally love to talk about, instead of the frickin' slog that we feel like sucks our soul. And right now, actually, your listeners aren't going to hear this, but right now we're running a flash sale on the course, like a recorded version of the course. You can get 6 months of content for $333. So it used to be thousands of dollars. We've made it a course that anyone can buy right now. So naked marketing. What?
Can you buy me it? Buy me it, Greg. Buy me it. That and the posing guide. I want the posing guide. That brings us to the end. Thank you, Yan, for giving us all your time. By the way, are you still planning on changing your name? I think Anna Moon.
That was when I was engaged. And then broke the engagement. So,
yes. Okay. Fair enough. Do you have any future projects in mind? Or maybe we should just keep an eye on your Substack.
I guess there's the book, obviously. Like once each chapter is published, will it be a physical published book, or is it always going to be? Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that is so exciting.
Yeah. And it's juicy. You guys are going to want to read it for sure.
I can't wait. So the question is, should I read along now, or should I wait until it's like published?
Well, do you remember?
Good
question. Do you remember me saying I always am trying to do things that people are like, you shouldn't do it like that. You know, like it's like me sitting the edge. So we live in like Netflix and chill. Like we want to binge everything, and instead I'm like trickling out chapters, and it's kind of like, I can barely consume. You know, but. Yeah. To me, what I hope that creates for people is I'm saying, get on my ride. Do you want to go on this ride with me? Do you want to experience one chapter at a time? Do you want to exercise that discipline muscle you haven't exercised in a while because you get to watch a whole series in like one night, you know? So I would say get on the ride, but also people don't like to do new shit. They don't like to do things that are like, you know, if you want to wait around until it's all out there, that's fine too. You can do that.
I love how you called that new shit. To me, that's like really old shit. That's what we used to do with like TV programs. You used to watch one episode a week and be like, yo, did you see that episode of this? And you're like, yeah, man. What do you think? Oh, crap.
Don't you like the nostalgia of that? Like, did you see what happened? And it's fun, and we've lost that. So you're right. It is the old stuff, but then we have to make it new again because we have to bring back the things we've lost. And
yeah, absolutely.
So, in wrapping up, like, other than that, do you have any like book recommendations that you've consumed, whether it's creativity or business or anything that you would recommend for listeners?
Oh my God, I'm a nerd. I'm such a nerd, and I love to read. So my recommendations are not going to feel like they're very specific to photography, but I swear they are. The first one is called Beauty, The Invisible Embrace. It's by John O'Donohue. Okay. It's one of my favorite books. That's all have you guys seen Fleabag?
Not yet, no.
Fleabag.
You've heard good stuff about it.
You've probably heard reference to like the sexy priest.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the author of this book, John O'Donohue, is like, to me, the real life sexy priest, except for he passed away. But he is an ex-priest who left Catholicism, but he is also just a poet, also just writes about the things I'm passionate about, which is the journey of the artist and the soul and where those things intersect. Right? The other book, nobody's going to read this. Almost no one I know likes this, but I'm going to just tell you what I like.
We're not here for other people, Yan. We're here for you.
This is called I Am That. It's
who's the author there?
It's a modern spiritual classic by Sri Nisargadatta. I love to say his last name, Nisargadatta. But
okay,
it's a journey of the self. It's how to wake up, people. Wake up. If you want your art to be good, you're gonna need to wake up.
Very cool. I've just looked. I've just looked up these books on Amazon. Although I never say this, but support your local bookshops. All right, I never say that enough. I always go to Amazon just for a rough price. Beauty is $13.20.
Nice.
And I Am That is $17 on hardback, $15 on paperback. So there you go. And there you go. Some books are hard to get. John Dolan. Gee.
What did he recommend? What did John recommend?
He recommended his own book.
Oh my god. Solid. Yeah.
Fair enough.
It's sold out.
Fair enough, John. Yes, thank you, Yan.
Thank you.
People, where can people find you? You said yanpalmer.com?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Yan Palmer. I'm not on the TikToks or the other places.
You don't want to be. It's the Wild West over there.
Oh, God.
And people can find us at perspectivebycinemate.com. Our Instagram is at perspectivebycinemate. Thank you to With Jack for sponsoring this episode. If you don't have any insurance, check her out. Ashley's very, very good. I know that sounds very dry, like pushing insurance, but our pal Ashley, who works here, it's her business. But when you talk to anyone, insurance never comes up as exciting unless you talk to Ashley, in which case it's like you're infectious with the way that she just loves it. So I support Ashley with Jack. I hope you have enjoyed this conversation. And if you have, you can hit subscribe on our YouTube or wherever you get podcasts. And we hope to see you in the next episode. However,
in the meantime,
enjoy your life.